The rain struck my office windows hard enough to sound like fingernails against glass. Manhattan glowed beneath me, cold, expensive, obedient. At 38, I had learned that cities were easier to control than people. Buildings did not lie. Numbers did not hesitate. And betrayal, when found, had to be cut out before it spread. Claire Bennett's personnel file lay open on my desk. 7 years of flawless work. 7 years of arriving before me, leaving after everyone else, remembering details my own men forgot. She knew every legitimate account attached to Russo Holdings. Every meeting. Every weakness hidden behind polished doors. Which was why the evidence felt personal. Restricted schedules had been copied from her terminal. Financial records had been transferred using her authorization. 3 confidential routes were now in the hands of men who wanted me buried. Victor Kane stood across from my desk, silent and watchful. "You're certain?" I asked. "The digital trail leads to her," he said. "No gaps." I looked at the empty chair outside my office. Claire had missed 2 meetings that morning. She had not answered internal calls. Claire never disappeared. That should have made me hesitate. Instead, it made me angry. I picked up my phone and dialed her private number. Firing her through a call was colder than she deserved. But mercy was dangerous when loyalty was uncertain. The line rang 4 times. Then a small voice answered. "Hello?" I went still. It was a child. Young. Careful. "Who is this?" "Lily. Claire's daughter." I had seen her name once on an emergency form. 7 years old. No father listed. "This is Dominic Russo. Put your mother on the phone." Silence. Not empty silence. Breathing silence. The kind that carried fear. "Mr. Russo," she whispered. "Yes. Are you calling because Mommy didn't go to work?" My grip tightened around the phone. "Where is she?" Lily did not answer immediately. Somewhere in the background, a television murmured too softly to understand. Then the child said 4 words that cut through every defense I had built. "Please don't fire Mommy." Victor shifted, but I barely saw him. I had been threatened with guns against my ribs. I had watched men beg for things I had no intention of giving them. Nothing had ever made me feel as powerless as that small, trembling sentence. "Why would you think that?" I asked. "Because she was crying last night. She said she made a mistake. But Mommy fixes everything. She even fixes things that aren't hers." A faint scraping sound came through the phone. Then something heavy struck the floor. Lily gasped. "Mommy?" My chair slammed backward as I stood. "Lily, listen to me. Go to your mother." Her footsteps pattered across the line. "Mommy," she called again. Louder this time. "Wake up." The fear in her voice changed something inside me. It stripped away the evidence, the accusation, the certainty. There was only a child alone with a mother who would not answer. "Is she breathing?" I think so." I was already moving. Victor followed me toward the private elevator. "Dominic, what happened?" "Trace the number. Claire's address is in her file. Then get the car." We reached her building in 12 minutes. An old brick structure in Queens with a broken entrance light and rainwater gathering beneath the awning. Claire Bennett had organized meetings in rooms where a single chair cost more than a year of rent here. Lily opened the apartment door before I knocked twice. She was small, pale, and barefoot, wearing pink pajamas covered in faded stars. "You're Mr. Russo," she said. It was not a question. I stepped inside. Claire lay beside the kitchen table, one hand curled near an overturned glass. Her face was drained of color. Dark hair clung to her cheek. Even unconscious, she looked exhausted rather than fragile, as if her body had finally rebelled after years of being ordered to endure. I dropped to one knee and checked her pulse. Fast. Weak. Still there. Call the doctor, I ordered. Victor reached for his phone. That was when I saw the folder beneath Claire's hand. Black. Sealed. Marked with the private insignia used only by my inner circle. I pulled it free. Inside were account numbers, access logs, and handwritten notes in Claire's precise script. At the top of the first page, one sentence had been pressed so hard into the paper that the ink had nearly torn through. The evidence is coming from inside your house. Behind me, Lily began to cry. And for the first time in years, I understood that I had not called to fire a traitor. I had called the woman someone was trying to silence. Claire woke beneath the muted light of her living room, a doctor's cuff around her arm and Lily asleep against the sofa beside her. Her eyes found me before they found anyone else. What are you doing here? Her voice was weak. Her suspicion was not. My doctor says exhaustion, dehydration, and a fever you ignored for too long. I didn't ask for your doctor. You were unconscious. And that gave you permission to enter my home? The question landed harder than it should have. Men rarely questioned my permission. They waited for orders, then carried them out. Claire pushed herself upright despite the doctor's warning and pulled the blanket closer around Lily. Everyone out, she said. Victor looked at me. I nodded. The doctor packed his equipment. Victor followed him into the hallway. I remained. Claire noticed. I meant everyone. We need to discuss the folder. Her gaze flickered toward the kitchen table. Just once. Enough. So you found it. I found a warning written by a woman whose access was used to steal from me. Her expression tightened, but she did not look frightened. She looked disappointed. I spent 7 years making sure your companies didn't collapse under the weight of men who thought loyalty was the same thing as competence. You expect me to ignore the evidence? No. I expect you to examine it before deciding who I am. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator knocking inside the wall. On the table sat 3 overdue envelopes beneath a chipped ceramic bowl. Lily's school shoes rested near the door, one sole repaired with clear glue. Claire followed my eyes. Don't. Don't what? Stand there turning my life into evidence. I looked back at her. At the office, Claire wore charcoal dresses and calm expressions. She moved through power without asking to possess any of it. Here, wrapped in an old blanket with fever in her face, she seemed more dangerous. There was nothing left for her to hide behind. And still, she refused to bend. Why did you miss the meetings? I was tracing irregular payments across 3 holding companies. My access disappeared before I could finish. You should have come to me. I tried. No message reached me. That is the problem. Lily stirred and opened her eyes. Mommy? Claire's entire face changed. The steel softened without disappearing. I'm here, sweetheart. Lily climbed into her arms, then looked at me. Did she lose her job? Claire closed her eyes briefly. I had ordered men removed from my organization with less hesitation than it took me to answer that child. No, I said. Not tonight. Claire's gaze sharpened. You don't get to suspend judgment and call it mercy. I stepped closer. The files came from your terminal. And the corrections in that folder came from my hand. Which version of me requires more effort to believe? I had no immediate answer. That seemed to hurt her more than an accusation. She reached toward the table, picked up one of the pages, and held it out. These transfers repeat every 17 days, but the authorization windows were changed after processing. Someone wanted the records to look clean when your auditors checked them. You discovered this alone? I discovered it while doing the work your senior men kept approving. There was no triumph in her voice. Only fatigue. I wasn't hiding information from you, Dominic. You stopped hearing me the moment someone with more power entered the room. The use of my first name should have felt like disrespect. Instead, it felt like truth. I took the page. A timestamp had been circled in red. Beside it, Claire had written one line: access revoked 11 minutes after draft warning created. Someone had known she was close. Someone had acted before she could reach me. Claire leaned back, pale but unbroken. If you believe I sold you out, fire me now. Look at me and do it. I met her eyes. She did not plead. She did not offer loyalty like a frightened employee trying to survive. She simply waited to learn whether I was capable of seeing beyond what had been placed in front of me. Then she lowered her voice. You weren't about to fire the traitor. Her eyes moved toward Lily. You were about to fire the only witness. The word witness changed the room. Not because I doubted Claire. Because someone else knew exactly what she had seen. I placed the marked page beside the folder. You have 72 hours. Her eyes narrowed. For what? To help me find who built this trail around you. And after 72 hours? I decide whether you return to Russo Holdings. Claire gave a quiet, humorless laugh. You still think my job is the thing I'm afraid of losing. She shifted Lily carefully onto the sofa, then stood. Her balance faltered for half a second. I reached for her. She steadied herself against the table instead. That small refusal irritated me more than it should have. If I agree, she said, there are conditions. I don't negotiate inside an active threat. Then investigate without me. She walked toward the kitchen, moving slowly but refusing to show weakness. I had watched hardened men surrender under less pressure. Claire poured herself water as though she had not just dismissed the authority half the city feared. Say them, I said. Lily stays outside your business. No armed men frightening her. No lies that make her think danger is normal. I remained silent. You show me every piece of evidence involving my name. And you do not make decisions about my life without telling me. That last condition is unrealistic. It is the only one that matters. She turned to face me. You can command employees. You can threaten enemies. You cannot protect me by removing my choices. The fever had left color high in her cheeks, but her voice was steady. I should have refused. Instead, I said, agreed. Something shifted between us. Not trust. The possibility of it. Claire opened her laptop at the kitchen table. Within minutes, the exhaustion disappeared behind focus. She mapped access points across 3 departments: finance, logistics, executive administration. The records weren't stolen in one breach, she said. They were assembled. She showed me a schedule copied through her account, an invoice exported by finance, and a security route pulled from operations. Someone collected fragments from different systems, then made my terminal the final destination. Why? Because final destinations are where investigators stop looking. I studied the sequence. Everything appeared clean. Too clean. Claire tapped one timestamp. This file says it was transferred at 9:14. So? The executive server performs its automatic backup at 9:12. For 2 minutes, external transfers are blocked. I looked at her. This transaction couldn't have happened when the log says it did. No. Someone changed the time afterward. Victor had called the evidence complete. Claire had broken it open with 2 minutes. The person behind this knows the systems, I said. And knows you. Her words were quieter now. They knew you would see my name and act before asking why. The truth settled like cold metal beneath my ribs. My temper had not been an obstacle in their plan. It had been part of it. A call came through from the men checking the building. The lock on Claire's bedroom window had been forced and reset. Nothing obvious was missing. Someone had entered before I arrived. I closed the laptop. You and Lily are leaving. Claire's posture hardened. We had an agreement. I am telling you. Not deciding without you. You already chose the destination. A secured guest house. Separate entrance. No guards inside. She studied me, searching for the trap hidden inside the concession. Then Lily appeared in the hallway holding a small red notebook against her chest. I packed the important things, she said. Claire's expression softened. What is that, sweetheart? My waiting book. From your office. She opened it. The pages were filled with drawings, crooked numbers, and sentences written in a child's careful handwriting, things Lily had copied while waiting for Claire to finish work. One page showed a tall man outside Claire's office door. Beneath him, Lily had written, "Don't trust what the camera sees." 3 hours later, inside the guest house, Claire and I watched the recovered security footage. A figure entered her office using my highest authorization. He paused beneath the camera. The image blurred. His face vanished into a perfect square of black. But before the recording ended, he turned toward the lens as if he knew we would eventually be watching. And raised one finger to his lips. The guest house was built to make danger look elegant. White stone. Tall windows. Soft lamps instead of security lights. Beyond the glass, armed men moved through the rain with weapons hidden beneath tailored coats. Claire noticed them before she noticed the fireplace. I said no guards near Lily. They're outside. They're visible. I signaled through the window. The men withdrew beyond the tree line without question. Lily watched them disappear. Why does everybody do what you say? Because it's their job. She considered that. Mommy says people work better when you ask nicely. Claire covered a smile with her hand. I had been challenged by judges, rivals, and men holding guns. None of them had ever made me reconsider my vocabulary. I'll remember that, I said. The guest house kitchen had been stocked before we arrived, but Claire rejected the prepared dinner and opened the refrigerator herself. 20 minutes later, the scent of tomato soup filled the room. It was an ordinary smell. That was what made it dangerous. I stood at the counter while Lily arranged crackers into crooked stars. Claire moved beside her, explaining each task as if the world outside was not searching for them. No whispered panic. No false promises. She gave her daughter simple truths. We're staying here because Mr. Russo's house is safer tonight. Not forever. Not because everything was fine. Because tonight required caution. I had protected people all my life with locked doors and armed men. Claire did it with honesty. At the table, Lily kept staring at my right hand. What happened there? A pale scar crossed my palm, old enough that I rarely saw it anymore. Broken glass. Did it hurt? Yes. She slid out of her chair, disappeared into the hall, then returned with a small bandage decorated with yellow suns. Before I could stop her, she pressed it over the center of the scar. There, she said. Now it knows somebody cares. The room went still. Claire's eyes met mine. There was no pity in them. That would have been easier to endure. Only recognition. As if she had seen the exact moment something inside me failed to remain untouched. Lily returned to her soup. I left the table before either of them could ask why my hands had tightened. In the security room beneath the main house, I ordered Claire's phone monitored. The threat was inside my organization. Her device could lead us to whoever had entered the apartment. I called it precaution. An hour later, Claire walked into the room holding a tablet displaying the active surveillance feed. You gave your word. I said I would tell you about evidence. You said you would not make decisions about my life without me. This is not about your life. It is about your safety. My private messages. My calls with my daughter's school. My medical records. You took all of that because you decided fear made your promise optional. I dismissed the technician. Claire waited until the door closed. You keep saying protection when you mean control. If someone contacts you, then I tell you. Or I choose not to. Trust cannot exist only when I behave exactly as you expect. She placed the tablet in my hand. Decide what matters more. Your access to everything, or my belief that your word means something. I stared at the screen. Then I entered my authorization and terminated the surveillance. Every copied file erased. Every live connection severed. Claire's anger did not vanish. But something behind it loosened. Thank you, she said. Not forgiveness. A door left unlocked. We returned to the footage after midnight. My technicians had isolated a damaged strip of audio from outside Claire's office. Static filled the speakers, followed by a distorted male voice. Claire leaned closer. The sentence was incomplete. Keep searching, and the girl, Lily, appeared in the doorway, clutching her red notebook. Her face lost all its color. She pointed at the speaker. That's him. Claire stood so quickly her chair struck the floor. Who, Lily? The child looked at me, fear widening her eyes. The man who told Mommy he could make me disappear. Lily's words emptied the room of air. Claire crossed the distance first and dropped to her knees. When did he say that? The child twisted the edge of her notebook between both hands. At your office. The night you told me to keep drawing. Claire went still. I remembered that night. A late meeting. Claire had asked to leave early, then remained until nearly midnight because 2 financial reports did not reconcile. What did he look like? I asked. Lily shook her head. I didn't see him. He was behind the door. Did he say anything else? Her eyes moved toward Claire. He said Mr. Russo would never believe you. The sentence entered me slowly. Not a threat aimed at Claire's body. A promise built around my character. Claire pulled Lily against her chest. You should have told me. I thought you would be scared. I was already scared, sweetheart. The honesty in Claire's voice hurt more than panic would have. Lily whispered into her shoulder, he said he bled for the family. He said that mattered more than papers. I knew men who used that phrase. Too many. It belonged to the inner circle, the ones who had survived wars beside me, buried secrets beside me, built their names beneath mine. The suspect list had just become smaller. And more dangerous. By morning, Claire had transformed the dining table into a map of my organization. Names. Access levels. Dates. Every page aligned with exacting precision. I stood across from her while Victor joined us by secure video. We need to force movement, I said. Pressure will make him disappear, Claire replied. Victor's face remained unreadable on the screen. Then what do you suggest? Claire slid 3 folders toward me. Give each senior officer a different version of the same shipment change. Different location. Different time. Different route. A controlled leak, Victor said. A choice, she corrected. The guilty man will tell us which lie he received. I studied her. 3 days ago, I had believed she was the weakness inside my empire. Now she was showing me how to save it. We proceed, I said. Victor hesitated for half a second. Then nodded. By noon, 3 false routes had been delivered. 1 to finance. 1 to security. 1 to operations. Claire's version placed the shipment at Pier 17 at 2 in the morning. At 1:26, our surveillance team intercepted a coded message directing men to Pier 17. The trap had worked. Claire was innocent. The realization did not bring relief. It brought shame. I found her alone on the rear terrace, watching rain collect along the stone railing. She had wrapped my coat around her shoulders without realizing it belonged to me. We confirmed the leak, I said. She turned. The route tied to the 3rd access group? Yes. The leak came from inside the inner circle. Her eyes closed briefly. Not triumph. Exhaustion. I owe you an apology. You owe me more than that. I know. The words were unfamiliar in my mouth. I stepped closer, stopping before distance became pressure. I saw your name on the evidence and decided the rest did not matter. I was wrong. Claire looked at me for a long time. You were afraid. I was angry. No. Anger was what you used so no one could see the fear. No one had ever spoken to me that way and remained standing. No one had ever understood me well enough to try. I thought betrayal made me weak, I said. And believing no one makes you strong? Her voice softened, but the truth did not. Rain whispered through the trees behind us. I accept your apology, she said. But I am not giving you trust because you finally admitted you broke it. Something tightened beneath my ribs. Most people treated my regret like a gift. Claire treated it like the beginning of a debt. And I respected her for it. My phone vibrated. Victor's name appeared on the screen. His voice was controlled when I answered. We found another account. The file arrived seconds later. An offshore transfer history. 8 payments. All routed through a private account opened under Claire Bennett's name. The earliest deposit was dated 6 months before she claimed to have discovered the breach. Claire read over my shoulder. The warmth vanished from her face. At the bottom of the document was a biometric authorization. Her fingerprint. Her signature. Her identity. I looked at her. For one fragile second, the apology between us still existed. Then the evidence opened its mouth again. And asked me whether I had learned anything at all. Claire stared at the biometric authorization as though someone had taken her face and taught it to lie. That isn't mine, she said. The fingerprint matches. So does the signature. That is the point. I enlarged the transfer record. Every line was precise. Date. Time. Encryption key. 8 payments feeding an account created in her name. Too perfect. Yet fear has a way of making perfect evidence feel like truth. Who had access to your biometric file? Human resources. Executive security. Anyone you authorized. That list is restricted. So was my terminal. Her answer came without hesitation. I wanted to believe her. That was the problem. Belief had become something I wanted, not something I could prove. Tell me why the account was opened 6 months ago. Claire's expression changed. Not guilt. Recognition. You're doing it again. I'm asking a question. No. You've already chosen the answer. Now you want me to make it easier for you. I lowered my voice. This account carries your identity. And your organization stores my identity. The authorization includes a live fingerprint. Claire stepped closer, anger sharpening every word. 3 months before that account was opened, your security department required all senior staff to complete biometric verification. Fingerprints. Voice samples. Retinal scans. I remembered the policy. Victor had recommended it after an attempted breach. Claire saw the memory cross my face. There, she whispered. You know someone could have taken it. Could have is not proof. Her eyes went cold. Neither of us moved. Outside, the rain had stopped. The silence left behind felt worse. You apologized an hour ago, she said. Did you mean it? Yes. Then trust what you learned. I cannot ignore evidence because I care what happens to you. The words escaped before I could stop them. Claire's anger faltered. For one breath, something vulnerable passed between us. Then she rebuilt the wall. Caring does not excuse suspicion. No. But responsibility does. You do not want the truth, Dominic. Her voice trembled, but she held my gaze. You want obedience that feels like truth. The sentence cut deeper than any accusation. Because I knew exactly what obedience looked like. Men lowering their eyes. Doors opening before I reached them. questions dying before they were spoken. Claire had never given me any of that. And some part of me still treated her courage as danger. She walked inside. I followed her to the guesthouse foyer, where Lily sat on the stairs with her red notebook beside her. Claire took their coats from the closet. "You cannot leave," I said. She turned slowly. "Is that an order?" The old answer rose first. "Yes." I swallowed it. "It is unsafe. So is staying near a man who believes me only when the evidence is convenient. I can protect you here. From everyone except you." Lily looked between us. Her small face carried a disappointment I had no defense against. Claire helped her into her coat. I could have locked the gates. Placed guards at every door. Called it protection. Instead, I stepped aside. Lily paused beside me. "You promised to listen before deciding." "I know. Mommy keeps promises even when she's scared." Then she followed Claire into the night. The door closed. The house felt enormous without them. I returned to the account file because there was nothing else I could do without becoming the man Claire believed I was. For 40 minutes, I searched the creation records. Then I found it. The account had been opened on March 9th. Claire's senior authorization had not been activated until April 2nd. 24 days later. She could not have created it. Someone had built the account first. Then waited for her to become powerful enough to blame. I called her immediately. 1 ring. 2. The line connected. "Claire," a man answered. His voice was calm. Almost amused. "She can't come to the phone." The man on Claire's phone let me hear her breathing before he spoke again. Slow. Controlled. Alive. "Put her on. You're in no position to give orders, Dominic." I knew that voice. Victor Kane had stood beside me for 15 years. He had buried enemies, negotiated peace, and built the systems now being used against me. I had mistaken proximity for loyalty. "What do you want?" "Access to the Russo network. Financial keys. Transport contracts. Every legitimate company shielding the rest." Behind him, something scraped across concrete. Then Lily whimpered. The sound stripped every calculation from my mind. "Let the child go." Victor laughed softly. "Now you understand why Claire was useful. You never looked closely at people until someone threatened to take them away." My security team entered the room behind me. Maps illuminated the wall. Vehicles waited for my command. 1 word from me would send 30 armed men into the city. It was what Victor expected. Claire came onto the line. "Dominic." Her voice was steady, but I heard the effort beneath it. "Are you hurt?" "We're together." Not an answer. A message. Victor told her to read his terms. Claire obeyed. "The Pier 17 route was compromised," she said. "He wants the original schedule, the red authorization file, and the winter account codes." Her words sounded precise. Too precise. Pier 17 had been false information. The red authorization file did not exist. Winter was the word she had written beside the branch in Lily's drawing, the bird that survived by remaining still. Victor believed she was listing demands. Claire was telling me the entire call was a trap. He wanted movement. Noise. A rescue he could predict. I closed my eyes. For years, power had meant acting first and forcing the world to react. Now the woman I had failed twice was asking me to do the one thing that terrified me most. Trust her while she was beyond my reach. "Do you understand?" Claire asked. "Yes." The word carried more than Victor could hear. I looked at the men waiting around me. "Stand down." Disbelief moved through the room. My security chief stepped forward. "Boss, we have a location window. We can reach them. And get Lily caught between us." We may not get another chance. We will. I said it with certainty I did not feel. Then I ordered every Russo account frozen. Not just the compromised funds. All of them. Companies. Properties. Cash routes. Emergency reserves. The empire went dark across the screens. Men began receiving denial notices within seconds. My security chief stared at me. You're dismantling our leverage. No. I'm removing his. I called Victor back. You can have the Eastern Network, I said. The ports, the contracts, the distribution routes. Everything you spent 15 years trying to steal. Silence. Even Victor had not expected surrender. In exchange, I continued, Claire and Lily walk away untouched. You would trade half your empire for a secretary? The word was meant to diminish her. It only revealed how little he understood. She was never just my secretary. The room heard me. Men who had followed me through fear watched their leader place 2 lives above everything they had built. Some lowered their eyes. Others looked at me as if authority were already draining from my body. Maybe it was. Power that required Claire's death was not power I wanted to keep. Victor's voice returned colder. You've become sentimental. No. I finally learned the difference between possession and responsibility. A pause. Then Claire spoke faintly in the background. Dominic, don't. The line shifted. Victor had taken the phone away. I accept your offer, he said. But transfers can be reversed. Codes can be changed. Men can pretend to surrender. What proves it? You. Every screen in the room seemed to dim. You come alone, Victor said. No guards. No weapons. You sign control of the network to me on camera. And then? Then you kneel. My men heard every word. Victor wanted more than the empire. He wanted its mythology broken in public. He wanted the city to see that Dominic Russo could be forced down. I looked at the frozen accounts, the silent guards, and the empty chair Claire should have occupied. For the first time, losing power did not frighten me. Losing the chance to deserve her did. Send the address, I said. Victor's final words followed me into the silence. Come surrender the man everyone fears, or the little girl learns what your authority was truly worth. I entered the abandoned courthouse alone. No gun. No guards. Only the transfer documents inside my coat and Victor's cameras watching from every corner. Claire stood near the judge's bench with her wrists bound. Lily was hidden behind her, one small hand gripping the fabric of Claire's coat. Victor waited in the center aisle. He wore the same calm expression he had worn beside me for 15 years. You actually came, he said. You knew I would. No. The old Dominic Russo would have burned this building down. The old Dominic Russo made you possible. His smile faded. That was the central truth. Victor had not defeated my security. He had studied my instincts. He used Claire's identity because he knew I would punish before investigating. He threatened Lily because he knew fear would make me reckless. Every false record had been built around one assumption, that I trusted power more than people. Victor held out his hand. The documents. I placed them on the bench. He checked the signatures, then nodded toward the stone floor. Kneel. Claire's eyes found mine. There was no plea in them. Only a warning. Her gaze moved to the cameras. Not a plea. A direction. Victor had not brought me there simply to take the network. He needed proof that I had surrendered willingly, proof his men would obey. I lowered myself to one knee. Victor exhaled like a man finally crowned. Then Claire spoke. You forgot the account sequence. He turned toward her. What? The offshore accounts. You created them before my authorization existed. Victor's face changed. Barely. But the cameras saw it. Claire continued. You copied my biometrics during the security enrollment. You altered the timestamps. You threatened my daughter because I found the original creation date. Victor lifted one finger to his lips, the same gesture preserved in the doctored footage. You were never supposed to find the creation date. You needed Dominic to accuse me twice. Once to remove me. Once to prove he would never change. Victor stepped toward her. I remained kneeling. Waiting. Listening. Trusting her lead. You told your men I stole from the family, Claire said. But the money never went to me. It went through shell companies controlled by you. A red light blinked above the rear door. Beside it was the emergency broadcast symbol Lily had copied from Victor's private security panels. Claire followed the symbol to a concealed switch beneath the bench and pressed it with her bound hands. The courtroom doors unlocked. Victor's own men entered first. Not mine. The cameras meant to record my surrender were now carrying Victor's confession through his internal feed. Victor looked around and understood. His empire had depended on silence. Claire had made him speak. He reached inside his jacket. I rose before he cleared the weapon. One movement. One choice. I could have ended him there. Claire said my name. Not loudly. She did not need to. I stopped. Victor was disarmed and taken away by the men he had deceived. The financial records would destroy him more completely than vengeance ever could. I untied Claire's wrists myself. I believed him before I believed you, I said. You believed the world you created. I am going to change it. I ordered every criminal account connected to Victor exposed. Every route he had corrupted closed. By morning, half my empire would be gone. Claire watched me issue the commands. Not impressed. Not afraid. Simply measuring whether my actions could finally carry the weight of my words. When Lily was safe in the car, I turned to Claire. Come back to Russo Holdings. Her expression softened, but she shook her head. I will never be your secretary again. Claire did not return as my secretary. She returned 3 weeks later with a contract she had written herself. No private office outside mine. No obedience hidden beneath the word loyalty. She would oversee ethics and operations across every legitimate Russo company, with full access to the records and authority to stop any decision carrying her signature. She also demanded ownership. Not a gift. A stake she would earn. I signed without changing a line. The men who remained after Victor's betrayal watched her enter the boardroom and take the chair across from me. Some expected me to silence her the first time she disagreed. They learned quickly. Claire did not raise her voice. She raised questions no one else had been brave enough to ask. And I answered them. The eastern routes were closed. The shell companies were surrendered to federal investigators through attorneys who knew how to keep Claire and Lily outside the fallout. Every criminal account Victor had touched was dismantled. It cost me money. Territory. Men who had confused fear with loyalty. For years, I had believed losing power meant becoming vulnerable. I understood now that power without restraint was only another kind of weakness. Claire did not forgive me all at once. She should not have. Trust returned in smaller ways. I stopped entering rooms without knocking. I asked before assigning protection. When Lily's school held a winter concert, I sat in the last row without guards beside me. She spotted me from the stage and smiled so brightly that I forgot, for one impossible second, every dark thing attached to my name. Afterward, she gave me another yellow bandage. For your hand, she said. The scar is healed. She pressed it into my palm anyway. Not that scar. Claire heard her. Neither of us spoke. Some truths were too gentle to survive explanation. A month later, I stood outside Claire's apartment with rain darkening the shoulders of my coat. I did not knock. I called. The phone rang twice before Lily answered. Hello? Her voice no longer carried fear when she recognized mine. "Good evening, Lily. May I speak to your mother?" There was a suspicious pause. "Are you going to fire her?" I looked through the window at the warm light inside. Claire moved past the curtains, unaware that I was standing 10 feet from the door. "No," I said. "Your mother is the only person in my company brave enough to tell me when I am wrong. She does that a lot. I have noticed." Lily giggled. Then Claire came onto the line. "Dominic? I'm outside." Another pause. "You could have knocked. I wanted to ask first." The door opened. Claire stood there wearing an old gray sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. No office. No danger. No title between us. Just the woman I had judged before I knew the cost of her silence. "I am not here as your employer," I said. "You are not my employer." The smallest smile touched her mouth. "Then I am here as a man asking for dinner." Dinner? And perhaps another chance after that. I did not promise to protect her forever. Protection had once been the only language I knew. Instead, I promised honesty. Choice. The right to leave every door I entered. Claire studied me long enough to make the city, the empire, and every fear I had carried feel very far away. Then she stepped aside. "Dinner," she said. "Nothing more tonight." Once, I would have mistaken that for refusal. Now I understood it as trust offered in its smallest, most precious form. I entered only after she gave permission. The first time I called Claire Bennett, I meant to remove her from my life. The next time, I waited for her to open the door. Because fear can make people obey you. But only love teaches you to ask.